Were you ever that 1 in 1 million? If so, what's your story? When I was a kid, I was chilling in the water of the Mediterranean Sea in Turkey. Suddenly I felt an awful burning sensation on my stomach and my legs. I looked like I had been brutally sandpapered, and I got a 40 deg point C, 104 deg point F, fever. Turns out I made contact with a jellyfish, and later found out that it hadn't happened on that beach for 10 years or so. I was just extremely unlucky. What beach was it? I got a really minor jellyfish sting when I lived in Turkey also. No idea on the rarity at that beach though. No sure about the odds on this one, but I survived a non-survivable plane crash. I was on an old PO2, famous for being very safe and uncrushable, on a tour of the desert in western China when I was like 7. My father's friend who hosted me and piloted the plane didn't survive, but somehow I got out with a concussion and apparently passed out for almost a day in the middle of the desert, in the wreckage of the crash, 50 kilometers from the town/airport. On the edge of the desert. The people who found me were some tree planters. They plant greens in the desert to protect towns from sandstorm. A lot of people live in these desert towns in China do this. Found me on their way picking up a shipment, and the only reason they looked was BC they were making a bet on how fast the egg would cook in the sand, and went off the road to test. Edit. First thing first, according to legends, 15 minutes. I never tested it though. So, according to my dads, the theory that I might have lived was because the plane was mostly made out of fabrics and wood. So when the plane crashed, the front half collapsed and took the majority of the impact. Though I got knocked out, I was probably covered under the wreckage and in the shades. It cooled me off enough to survive for a day or so. I was in 2 separate car crashes in 2 separate cars in less than 45 minutes apart. Also, go you/sharkboy. Edit. I wasn't the driver for either crash. First car was hit from the side. Friend came and picked us up. Car lost traction, and we slid off the road and hit a pole. Neither was that bad, just poor timing. I was 2. If you count the ambulance. Someone pulled out in front of me, and I hit them, because I had no time to brake. Had some bad back pain, so an ambulance took me to the hospital. On the way there, someone pulled out in front of them. Had 2 11 centimeters benign tumors growing in my spine, resulting in gradual paralysis from my chest down. They had no idea how the tumors formed. Surgery took 11 hours when they thought it would take 4 because the tumors were so complexly woven throughout my spine. I now have pretty much half a spine in chronic pain. But I'd take that over losing my life from paralysis and being unable to breathe. Edit. Wow. Thank you for all the support. I didn't realize this was going to blow up as much as it did. If anyone has specific questions and wants to message me, feel free. I'm at your service. Thanks again for all the support and love. It made my day. Zo. The first one, I don't know about the exact odds, but I was born on the 7th of July 1977 and weighed 7 pounds and 7 ounces. Sadly though I clocked in at 6:50 am. The other is that around the age of 14 I started to notice the outsides of both of my feet starting to get much wider. After a couple of years of buying expensive custom made shoes they decided to perform surgery on my feet. Turned out I had extra muscle growth along with something else I don't recall at the moment. My podiatrist told me he submitted a scholarly article on it. May also have been genetic, as when my dad was 3, he developed an extra toe growing out of each one of his big toes. What? At 3? I knew you could develop extra toes as a fetus, but at 3? Criminy. Is no one safe? When I was a teenager I had just started working at the local Sears Auto Center Express Lube shop, and on day 1 did a quick orientation in my first oil change. The manager walked away when he felt I was good to go, and the oil change went well. Fast forward a few days later my manager asked me to come into his office and he explained that the oil filter I had used had one huge flaw. I didn't know what that was, and it turned out the filter was pressed on backwards into the filter can, and it wouldn't allow oil to flow in, and it damaged the motor. They had to purchase a new motor for the person, and I still kept my job. He said it was a 1 in a million chance that would have happened, and it did on my first oil change. They have insurance for a reason. All sorts of weird stuff happened at our Walmart. Defective tires, filters, oil, you name it. They don't hold the employees accountable for their weird stuff. I was struck by lightning while talking on a landline. This was in the early 90s. Lightning struck the telephone line and traveled through the handset to my ear. My parents drove me to the ER. I couldn't talk very well. My brain knew what I wanted to say, but my mouth didn't want to say it. I had a terrible stutter. My doctor told me that I had had a dose of good, old-fashioned electroshock therapy. My speech was normal the next day, but I get a terrible headache whenever a thunderstorm comes through. Edit. Autocucumber edit 2. Thank you for the gold. I have an unknown type of autosomal dominant intranuclear myopathy. My type of it is so rare that they haven't even seen it before. Getting diagnosed was a multi-year struggle. They pretty much had to rule out everything else. It doesn't feel great to be in this club by myself. Countless blood draws, MRIs, CAT scans and a Bayesian genetic test. So far, it looks like my father and I are the only ones with it. Yay. Edit. Thank you guys for all the kind messages and support. I really do appreciate it. If anyone is going through the struggle of getting a diagnosis, message me. I can't help with the diagnosis, but I can help with the feelings. Second edit. As a researcher has pointed out, this isn't really rare. Just a type that hasn't really been seen in the population yet. Meaning there is certainly more people out there, just not tested or diagnosed yet. In the future, I'll probably be 1 in 50,000 to 1 in 100,000. Sorry to make everyone think I was 1 in a million. I had AFM, acute flaccid myelitis, when I was really young. It's like weak polio, if that makes sense. My legs struggled to keep me up, and I was consistently collapsing. However, the disease wasn't discovered at the time, so I wasn't diagnosed. I was in and out of hospital several times a week, being tested for all sorts of bone cancers. When the disease was discovered, I matched every description of it perfectly. But now, I'm running cross country and doing alright. Not quite 1 in a million, but close enough. As a child, I had an extremely rare autoimmune disease. On top of having an extremely rare illness, I developed the rarer and most dangerous of the symptoms. My kidneys started shutting down. Most kids recover from this disease, but not always the ones with kidney issues. I was extremely lucky. I did not have to go on dialysis, and my kidneys eventually reached normal functioning levels. It took a decade to be completely cleared of the disease. My mother likes to call me a miracle child, not only because of this, but because she was not supposed to be able to have a kid due to health issues, and had several miscarriages before my stubborn ass decided to be born. Weird shit. Had pygmy fever when I was 16. Nothing special about that. Had pneumonia a few months later, probably due to my weak immune system from the first disease, which caused my lungs to collapse. Very unlikely for a 17-year-old. The hospital I was in couldn't do any more for me, so another hospital came with a rescue team of 8 people and a heart-lung machine. ECMO. Very rare that hospitals have those that can be transported. The hospital only used it the second time and the first time successfully to pick me up. They brought me to the other hospital. I was in a coma for a couple more days, but made it out of hospital within 3 weeks after that, just before Christmas. A big newspaper wanted the story for Christmas miracles, but no, thanks. I own a Lego minifig you call Mr. Gold. This particular minifig was to celebrate the 10th series of the Lego figurine line. They are sort of like grab bags. You can feel for them, but you don't know what minifig you're really going to get. So because they were celebrating, they thought it was a good idea to only make $5,000 of these. Anyways, when I was younger and even now, I was really good knowing which figures they are simply by looking at the figures pieces and feeling out those pieces. I really like the minifigures cause I thought they were really cool and unique, so I really wanted Mr. Gold in me, and my mom hunted for it for a long time, but after a while I gave up. Then one day I was at the Lego store and felt a distinct diamond piece and freaked out. Finding this figure was a downright fantasy. I'm 18 now and still want to relive 12-year-old me's pure joy as he opened the packaging. Edit. Thanks for making me Mr. Gold twice. Also 2 words. 13. I was kidnapped when leaving work and held for 18 months, along with 2 other girls. The guy who took us claimed himself to be an ineffable lower god and used cult tactics, manipulation and control to have us be his family. I was allowed to leave to the grocery store as an errand, but knew if I didn't come back the others would receive my punishment. I finally got away by stabbing my captor when I believed he was going to kill me. Edit. I did a podcast about the experience, and if you'd like to give it a listen, go check out https://witwasthatlike.com/22. Wow, this is an amazing story. I'm so glad you're here to tell it. I wasn't kidnapped, but I was held miserably in a basement from kindergarten to 4th grade, physically abused, starved, and more. I always fantasized about getting away by stabbing them, but I never did it. So amazing you are alive. I hope you do have support in your life now. Close bracket. I was on Tinder and was talking to this guy. He was supposed to meet me for dinner. I texted him and no answer. Then I texted him on Tinder. Said that he couldn't make it. However, I got a text back from the number. It wasn't the guy that I thought I texted. It was the actor Jared Butler. I thought he was lying until he FaceTimed me. Nice guy. Edit. Well, I didn't think this post would blow up. First, I didn't go on a date with him instead. He lives on the West Coast and I live on the East Coast. I didn't keep his number because I respect his privacy. When he FaceTimed me, he was super casual and asked me why I was using Tinder and he wished me luck on it.